So, we have a treat today. Rev Denise Schubert is going to be speaking for us, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. I met her just about 2 months ago. A group of us ministers gather once a month for lunch, Florida ministers, and it was my pleasure to meet her at that time. She's been a minister for Centers for Spiritual Living since 2003. Her ministry has taken her from the Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, then to the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science, and then to the Bodhi Spiritual Center in Chicago. Most recently, she was the senior minister and the spiritual director of the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she held that post for 9 years. And she retired in 2016 and moved here, came out of retirement, as it turns out, to serve as the spiritual director for the Open Path Retreat Center in Cape Coral, Florida. So she came up from Cape Coral today. Denise recently, what she says, and I got this from information that she shared with us, and I do believe it's true because I can see it in her, how she lives her life. She's committed to inspiring, educating, and empowering each person she meets to live an extraordinary life with power, with poise, and with confidence. She does this through the teachings of science of mind as well as New Thought and ancient wisdom philosophies. So she knows what she's talking about, and she certainly knows what she's talking about with her theme for today, and I'm looking forward to hearing this, the journey of becoming. Let's welcome Reverend Denise Schubert.
Good morning. Really, you are my treat. I've actually relocated from North Carolina to Florida in December, and this is my first time doing a Sunday talk since I got here, so I've been hungry to begin to connect with people here, so it's my pleasure to be with you this morning. I was driving up here, and my topic is the journey of becoming, and I had this thought that it should be the journey of beginning, but maybe both, because the idea about the journey of becoming is really, for me, about getting very clear that we are not nouns, that we are not a noun. A noun denotes, so what did we learn in Catholic school? What's a noun? A person, place, or thing, right? See, I know you know, a person, place, or thing. And people, places, and things have a sense of isness about them. And in truth, we are verbs. In truth, we are beings that are in action, that we are always changing, always becoming, always growing, always evolving on this upward spiral of evolution. Now, Eric Butterworth said, "It has been said that when the ties that bind the mind are broken, and a person is introduced to his real self that has no limitations, the bells of heaven ring." So this journey of becoming, let me just say, I've just never been more interested in this conversation, and here's why. So I am 68 years young, and I just moved into God's waiting room. Have you guys ever heard that before? Or is it true only for Cape Coral? Okay, so I moved into this idea that about this time we should be ending, not beginning. About this time we are ending the cycle of becoming, and we're kind of winding down for the whatever that stretch is. And we need to have a new thought about this. Einstein said, "I want to know God's thoughts. The rest are details. I want to know what God thinks about aging, not about what others think about aging or what the world thinks about aging." Now, it's not an easy story to rewrite because we are influenced deeply, not only by what's in us, but by what's in the world around us. I want to share one of my favorite readings from a book called Dead-Eye Dick that was written by Kurt Vonnegut. And it kind of speaks to the condition. So here's what he writes. "I have caught life. I have come down with life. I was a little wisp of undifferentiated nothingness, and then a little peephole opened quite suddenly. Light and sound poured in, voices began to describe me and my surroundings, and nothing they said could be appealed. They said I was a boy named Rudolph Walt, and that was that. They said the year was 1932, and that was that. They said I was in Midland, Ohio, and that was that. And they never shut up. Year after year, they piled detail upon detail, and they still do. You know what they say now? They say the year is 1982, and I'm 50 years old. Blah, 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 blah. So, not one person chuckled. I'm not sure why that is. Why is that? But at any rate, it's one of my favorite readings because it speaks to the conditioning we are raised with, the way we acquire our belief systems, what we think about ourselves, what we think about the world that we live in. I was pondering the other day, you know how when you look in the mirror, sometimes I look in the mirror, and I'm looking at, and I go, is that me? You know, looking at this 68-year-old face, is this me? And I can so remember looking in a mirror 50 years ago at a 12-year-old face. I can clearly remember that face I was looking at, and again at 20, and again at 30. And I realized that the thing we're looking at is different than the thing we're looking with. And what's doing the looking is eternal. What's doing the looking is we are not the body. We are looking with something that is birthless and deathless within us. And it's fascinating, right? And I'm sure another 10 years I'm looking, is that me? Because the me inside is the same. Now, I was primarily living my life as a noun until about 45. You know, I was married, I had a job, I had money, I was, I can't remember who said most people live their lives in quiet desperation. I was one of those people. I was my mother's daughter, the oldest of 6 children. I had a proclivity. My nose was too big. My hips were too wide. I had high cholesterol. All the nounness of our living. Are you all with me? You know what I mean? And really just kind of following the path of my family, the way that people in my family lived. The people, my family, they were that kind of people. Not some kind of people. Then at 45, I walked into the Agape International Spiritual Center, and I don't know how familiar you are with Dr. Michael Beckwith and that center, but all of a sudden, I got a glimpse of who I really was. I got a glimpse of, wow, I am not that. I'm not that person. Now, the past 23 years since that moment have been far different than the first 23 years. They have been nothing but a journey of becoming. At 45, I was a high-level technology executive for a law firm. I was about 40 pounds heavier. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I don't know. I was that person. And within 5 years of that first walk into that Science of Mind community, I was a minister. I was well on the path of becoming a minister. And so I've been doing that ever since. Now, one morning in 2014, I woke up to an email from Groupon that was offering a 10-day trip to Africa for $4,000, $3,999. And at that time, I was 65 years old. And Africa had been in my heart since this big, right? I just was fascinated with it. I watched I used to stay up late at night, and they had all these nonprofits would run their advertising at 11 at night or 2 in the morning. So I had a lot of blah, blah, blah going on. Too old, too expensive, too scary. But something within me said, you're going. So I found a friend and we went. It was a huge beginning again for me, a huge journey of becoming for me. Since that trip, I've been back 7 times. I've been to Botswana, Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe. I lived in Nairobi for 90 days with a wonderful minister. There's a Centers for Spiritual Living in Nairobi. And I've won awards for my photography. It changed everything. So at 65, you can begin, again, the journey of beginning. So I thought, even after I moved to Florida, so the last time I went was last year, and I thought, well, I'm moving to Florida now. I mean, in Florida, you retire. So there's something, like in Florida, you retire, so I don't know, those days are over, whatever. So I wake up one morning about a month ago, and there's another email from Nat Geo Wild. I had one day offhandedly submitted my name as to join them on an expedition in South Africa in December. And I submitted it late because they only had 10 spaces. I was 2 weeks late than the opening date for submitting your name. There's just no way I should have been able to do it because of the fan base for Safari Live. But I didn't get a no, so I emailed again. I said, I just submitted my interest in doing this. I'm just wanting you to know I'm still out here wanting to do this. And about a week later, I opened my email and says, hi, this is Peter from Nat Geo, and we're pleased to tell you somebody canceled. Do you want it? It's like, yes, I want it. So I'm happy to say that I'm going back to Africa again in December for 3 weeks. Now, all of that's just to amuse you. The real message for me this morning is if I were to have an acorn in my hand, it would be so small you wouldn't be able to see it, right? It's a very small thing. And I know you all know that an acorn is the genesis of what? An oak tree. So if you were to walk up to a fully mature oak tree, it's an awe-inducing thing, right? If you try to hug an oak tree, it just, there's something in that resonates with us. But the important part is that entire oak tree, in its fullness, the entire tree lives in the acorn. Nothing needs to be added, taken away, subtracted, transformed, changed, in order for it to become what it is meant to be. And I believe that it's exactly the same with us. That in this process, by the way, the process of everything being in the acorn is called involution. The process of the acorn becoming the oak tree is called evolution. And in nature, nature does not struggle to be what it is. Nature just becomes what it is. Now, I was facilitating a spiritual living circle in the CSL in Cape Coral the other day, and there was a wise guy in the circle of 10 people. And he said, yeah, but what about if it doesn't rain for the whole season, right? And I was making the analogy that if I cut my finger, how miraculous it is that we don't have to do anything. You and I, we're not so smart. All we have to do is watch, and we will watch nature, God, whatever you want to call this presence and this power, we will watch it heal that finger. It's a miracle, right? Everything, the skin grows back, it scabs over, 4 or 5 days later, and it's as if you never cut your finger. And the same wise guy said, well, but what about if you get it dirty and it has gangrene, you have to cut it off? So there is something really important about environment, right? That in nature, there has to be the right environment for a seed to become an oak tree. It is true that when you plant a seed in the soil, there needs to be enough water, enough sunlight. You can't dig up the seed every 3 seconds, right? You have to let it take its course. And I think the same is also true with you and I. And most of us I didn't have, the environment growing up that really was a facilitation of who I really was. Even though it was always there, right, that we were captured, our parents said, no, you don't want to dance, you want to be a dentist, right? Or what do you have to be so happy about? Or whatever all those messages were. So until we get invited into some kind of awareness of who we really are, we may not know. I did not know. I might have known as depression or sadness or hopelessness or smoking too much or eating too much, but I didn't know like a joyful discovery. Fillmore said that life for each of us should be a journey in jubilation. And this implies a willingness to let life be a constant experience of celebration. So one of the best books, if you're new to the science of mind, one of the best books you could read to help you understand this and to especially understand Ernest Holmes is a book called This Thing Called You. And I'm going to read you a little something that Ernest wrote because he was a beautifully eloquent writer. He says, I know that the presence, the power, and the activity of the living spirit are in and around me. I know that the law of God, which is perfect, is operating in me now. I know that there is one mind, that mind is God, and that mind is my mind now. We could say that together. Let's repeat after me. I know that there is one mind. I know there is one mind. That mind is God. And that mind is my mind. I certainly did. Okay, we're starting over. I know that there is one mind. That mind is God. That mind is my mind now. Beautiful. He continues, there is no fear in this mind, no memory of fear, and no expectation of fear. There is no thought of want, of lack, or limitation in this mind, and that mind is functioning in me now. Now, I don't remember who said this. It might have been Eric Butterworth since I was reading his book, but whoever said it said, God is not in you like a raisin in a roll. God is not in you like a raisin in a roll. But rather, God is in you like the ocean is in a wave. So God is in each of us, the allness of which we are all an eachness. So if you think of the ocean and you think of the wave may be a unique individualized expression of that ocean, but it is all ocean. There isn't anything else in it. So you right now, and I right now, on this journey of beginning again, this journey of becoming, Dr. Michael Beckwith did this sermon. I wasn't going to include this, but it changed my perception about death so profoundly that since that moment I really had no fear of it, right? No fear of extinction or no fear of annihilation, whatever it was before. And he talked about the idea of a baby in the uterus, right? That the baby's in the womb, happy, comfortable, secure, warm, familiar with the sounds of its mother talking and sleeping and chewing and all of those things. And one day, out of nowhere, something happens to upset the status quo. And that the process of giving birth causes the infant some discomfort and maybe some scariness even, and like, oh my God, what's happening here? But that in the end, when the baby is born, if all is right and wonderful, loving hands are going to catch you, right? They're going to catch it. And so will begin its journey of evolution, its upward spiral of becoming, right? It will become that being that looks in the mirror and sees itself at 5 and at 15 and at 20 and at 50 and 80 and 90, 100, heck, 105. So he described that we're in our lives, we're comfortable, we have our favorite TV stations, our favorite food, our friends, our family, and then out of nowhere, all of a sudden something begins to happen that may also be just a little bit scary and a little bit painful. But at the time of our transition, at the time of our laying down this body that we aren't, that we will also be caught by loving arms. In what way, we don't know for sure, but that also simultaneously will support us in our next upward spiral of becoming and the journey of our own evolution. So you and I are always on the green growing edge of our evolution, whether we're in this body or not in this body. So what is wanting to emerge through you? What is wanting to emerge through you? Listen to those inner urgings and longings. They are your calling into your next best expression, right? They are your yes to the universe, because remember, all that you are meant to be is already in you, like an acorn. And are you listening to your inner urgings and nudgings? Now, oftentimes, I have had many periods, and even as a minister, I've had periods where I feel a little sad or a little longing or a little, I don't know quite how to word it, but what I would call it now is divine discontent. The kind of discontent that a chick probably feels in its egg, right? When it's outgrowing its egg. So it's not quite as comfortable as it was, and it needs somehow to spread its wings. So that divine discontent, don't label it as I shouldn't be feeling this way, or there's something wrong if I'm not feeling, cheerful all the time. I would treat it like what is trying to emerge through me and from me. Eric Butterworth says, you cannot get away from yourself no matter where you go. You are always environed by yourself, horizoned by your mentality, encircled by your ideals, and constantly influenced by what you are saying to yourself. What you think within yourself and what you say to yourself is what will determine the life experience you have, the health you express, and the prosperity that you demonstrate. So this journey of becoming is opening to unlimited possibilities within your own life, no matter what age you are, no matter what your current circumstances are, no matter what the health of your body is now, no matter what your pocketbook says. Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss and the money will come. I think he would also say, follow your bliss and your health will come. Follow your bliss and your prosperity will come. Follow your bliss and your contentment will come. The final chapter in Eric Butterworth's Celebrate Yourself book is called Live Forever and Enjoy It, and it's specifically on aging and how we as New Thought thinkers might rethink what it means to be moving into the final quarter of our lives, right? Which is also true. I mean, that is true. When I look forward, there are fewer years in front of me than there are behind me. But that doesn't have to be a sad thing. In this chapter, he quotes again Charles Fillmore, who said, well into his 90s, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and I spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. So my invitation to myself today, my invitation to you today is to lay to the side all of the conditioning. It's what Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, called the domestication of humans, which happens to every human. It's like, here you come, as Dead-Eye Dick said, here you come, this is your name, this is your economic status, this is your religion, this is what's possible for you, these are the limitations of our kind of people. You have to lay all that aside. And from a spiritual perspective, really understand that you are a wave in divine mind, and that as such, anything is possible for you. And so it is. Thank you.